Aaron Smith.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 1, 1, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Son
Test 1, 2.
adversaire, il a 32 ans, il mesure
This is for the American television. This is for American television. We will be taping all fights. We will be taping and calling all fights. And we will pick it up on your wide shot with our audio.
Smith.
Mic test 1, 2, 3, 4. Mic test. Mic test 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2.
Mic test 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2.
By the way, is it Gaithersburg or Gaithersburg? You know, in Maryland? Gaithersburg is what I've heard. Right?
Curtis Smith. Combat international dans la catégorie des super welter, 8 rounds de 3 minutes. Les juges pour ce combat sont messieurs Talon et Azaro. L'arbitre est l'arbitre international, monsieur Armand Grief.
Yep. Coach. Sorry. Thanks. Come on, wide shot.
Première reprise.
Two super middleweights are set to go. Curtis Summit out of Joliet, Illinois, now training and fighting here in Paris in the black. And Aaron Smith out of Gaithersburg, Maryland, who has been flown in with only a couple of days' notice to fight Curtis Summit. And they are on for 8 rounds here in the super middleweight division. Curtis Summit on a real high of his career at one time, Bob, has felt like coming over to Paris at 32 years of age has been kind of a rekindling of his career.
Yes, he's really done well moving over here. I'll tell you something, Sam. Just the initially here in the fight, Smith really is dry as a bone here. We all know he just got in early this morning, and Curtis Summit's a strong fighter, and it comes out with a real good sweat on him. And Smith starting dry here. A lot of times things can happen early in the fight.
Curtis Summit with an extensive amateur career, including All-Army and the National Amateur Semifinalist, Colorado State Golden Gloves champion. After that, it's 21-6-2 as a pro. Had some big wins, also had a big loss. He lost in 10 to Aaron Davis right after Davis had knocked in Mark Breland. But he also came up and defeated Angel Pedroza, and I guess that was a huge win for Curtis Summit back in the States.
I was at the Aaron Davis fight in New York up in the Catskills, and I'll tell you something, Curtis Summit was very upset after that fight. He thrashed Aaron Davis 10 rounds. The kid had just come off a huge upset of knocking out Mark Breland, and because of that he lost a close decision. But it was just another indication the record of Curtis Summit has been fashioned against very tough competition and tough circumstances. He's a better fighter than his record indicates, Sam.
Aaron Smith coming in as your basic opponent at 9-12-1 for a record, but again, getting a young man that has an opportunity to come to Paris and find a quality super middleweight right now in Summit. As a warning from the referee to keep the gloves clenched, as kind of a slap that time by Summit. And now Summit's being warned to keep his head up. That's the warning he got.
Smith had been warned earlier for keeping his head up. The Europeans don't bob and weave like the Americans, and it's more of an amateur call by an official to warn a guy for bringing his head close to the belt line, but it is a dangerous thing.
Smith, by the way, was showing pretty good respect to the power of Curtis Summit. 13 knockouts in his 21 wins. And Summit, you see a good left hook. You can see why. Walked right in and landed that. And Smith a little wobbly as he goes back towards his own red corner. But just you see the few seconds left to go here in round number 1. Smith really just kind of pouring for self-defense right now, not throwing any major punches.
Curtis a little wild with the overhand right there, but I think he's going to settle into this fight. He realizes this guy's...
Curtis Summit, 32 years of age, out of Joliet, Illinois, now training here. Out of the academies in
Curtis.
And he told me he had such a hard time adjusting to the food. He does not profess to know any French. He does not want to learn any French. He said, I know enough to get myself by. And as soon as I get an opportunity to fight for a big title here in Europe or either come to the States, that's exactly what he's going to try to do. And you see Smith here getting caught with that pretty good left hook that Summit threw in the first round.
Hurt him, that hook up on the temple.
And you can see that's a counter. Curtis likes for the fighter to come at him. I mean, he likes to counter off of a fighter coming right at him. You see Smith threw a good punch, and Curtis scored right behind him. Curtis Summit, 32 years of age, getting ready for round number 2 of the super middleweights here in Paris.
Deuxième reprise.
Round 2, Aaron Smith, again in the white with the American flag adorning his trunks. Flying in, as a matter of fact, arriving only in the AM hours here. Getting a quick physical to weigh in, and now in the ring with Curtis Summit. Summit is the WBC Intercontinental Champion. In 7 rounds, he came up with a knockout over Tony Collins in October of '92, and he felt like that was a pretty good spark.
Curtis is always, he's a pressure fighter, employs the peekaboo defense to a certain extent, comes right to a guy, trying to shorten the distance and work on the inside. Good uppercut hook.
Smith looks like he's just almost totally defenseless right now, as almost every angle Curtis Summit is getting something in. And Smith just trying to bob and weave and get away, and you can see the punches are nothing more than kind of slapping blows right now. Tough trip. 10, 12 hours it took to get to the hotel from New York. And then, of course, after you get there, you go through about 2 hours of the weigh-in and the doctoring. And then you come after about 3 or 4 hours sleep to the arena and have to be the first fight of the night. It's a tough one, again, for Aaron Smith, who get fed a pretty good right hand by Curtis Summit.
Yeah, to top it all off, he gets hit with a right hand counter there, and then Summit's just walking right through him at this stage, Sam, and showing him absolutely no respect.
I asked Aaron how much he'd been in the gym, and he said, I'm not training in the gym right now, I'm training at home. And that can be anything but good news for Aaron Smith, as he's now starting to bleed just a bit from the nose. Holding warning on Aaron Smith. Smith's only 24 years of age, 5'11". Both fighters, by the way, came in at 70 and 9. 156 pounds for Smith, 154, 70 kilos for Curtis Summit at the weigh-in this morning. There's that left hand again. There's going to be a slip after Smith had started to stumble.
His legs are betraying him here, Sam.
Indeed, yes. Looked like that spaghetti you had for lunch today.
But Summit, a consummate of professionals, taking his time here. He's walking to him, trying to make something sensational happen here in front of his adopted hometown fans.
By the way, Bob, he's won his last 3 fights by a knockout. He's got 13 knockouts in 21 fights. So you look at the ratio of knockouts his last 3. Of course, the basic quality of opponents would have to be considered, but he feels like he's setting down on his punches a little bit again.
Yeah, it's a combination of, he's setting down on his punches, and for once he's not, getting put in so tough as he was throughout his career when he was handling himself in the United States. They really are, they've adopted him, they like him over here, and they're appreciative of him, and they try to protect him in the matches.
Closing seconds of round number 2, Aaron Smith, who has been almost plummeted at will here in this second round by Curtis Summit, does survive the bell in the second 3-minute round. So another solid second round by Curtis Summit, trying to improve his record to 22 victories and 6 losses. And across the way, Aaron Smith takes a little extra time in setting down. And there you take a good look at him. 9-12-1 a record out of the United States, Gaithersburg, Maryland. And again, flying in as a last-second replacement here in this fight tonight.
That's where he's coming in.
Might make mention that a couple American fighters who had scheduled to be here, Charles Price and Kimra Davis, in fact, were arrested on the way to the airport. One, Price had some very outstanding warrants against him. Arrested, put in jail. Davis was released on bail. You know, he had a 6-2-1 record, a good opportunity to come over and fight. He happened to be in the wrong place at the right time, it seems. And again, both were scratched, and Aaron Smith was one of the substitutes that came in to fight in this fight here tonight. And Cecil Sims was the other. Round number 3 of a scheduled 8-round fight, super middleweight. Curtis Summit now training in Paris in the black. And Aaron Smith out of Gaithersburg, Maryland in the white, a last-second replacement. And let's see how much longer he can continue to take the pounding here from Curtis Summit.
He's certainly willing, though, Sam. You know, to come all this way, the easiest thing, you know, the mind of a fighter is most of the fight. And knowing that you're in bad circumstances coming in like this, the kid, you know, he's showing it all. He's not looking to lay down or anything. He's not holding. He's trying to fight as best he can, and you got to give him credit for that.
Amateur, rather light, 20-11, his record for Smith. Now, as I mentioned, with 9 wins and 12 losses. Smith coming in and again took some pretty good punches in round number 2, but I was out trying to throw some punches here. You know, I was just looking at Curtis Summit. I tell you what, this young man has certainly done some good work. He looks rather chiseled right now.
Oh, he's a brick house, Sam, and it always has been. You know, Curtis has always taken good care of himself, but even, you know, coming over here, he was always a guy that you know, was kind of on his own, made his own matches, and no man is an island in this business. And Curtis, you know, got an opportunity. These people over here took a liking to him, appreciated his ability, regardless of the fact that he, you know, his record wasn't pristine. But you know, you look at who it's been fashioned against, and you realize you got a real fighter on your hands. But it's just too much to do for a young, or any man, young or old, to some good exchanges here. But it's too much to manage and take care of yourself, train yourself, handle yourself. Just too much for any young man.
The biggest problem has to be who's going to wake you up to go out and run. I guess that's the biggest problem. You have to be self-motivated in that situation.
Right. And I think Curtis has got that aspect of it down. He's always been brilliantly conditioned, but it's, you know, when they start, first thing for a matchmaker is if he can get a fighter's phone number, he'd much rather call the fighter, because no fighter is afraid of anybody. And, you know, Curtis Summit got the call off, you know, to come at the last second, do the same thing that Aaron Smith is doing here tonight.
By the way, the last win by Curtis Summit came in Belgium. Bruno Westenberg went down in the 7th round to the punching power of Curtis Summit, one of 3 in a row that he's put together now.
Curtis has got that WBC Americas or WBC Intercontinental Championship, which an underling title like that's great for a warrior like this. It can increase his opportunities and, you know, leave his name prominently with the sanctioning body that he's trying to work his way up into the rankings of. Curtis is on top of Smith's head there a little bit. The referee's leaving him alone.
Closing seconds of round number 3 of a scheduled 8-rounder. Summit and Smith, 2 Americans a long way from home tonight in Paris. Curtis Summit, good look at him coming into his corner here. And again, as you pointed out, almost self-trained, but he does, of course, have some help around the gym. And feels like it's been a good move for him. Again, one of the things I was very interested in, he seems to be so comfortable in the situation. We saw him fight Carl Daniels, and he said, oh, did I stink up the place that night? And certainly did not do well, but he says, I feel much more comfortable now. I could certainly see the way into there.
Yeah, he couldn't. He told me the other day that he did those 47 days. He'd been an amateur at 47 and a pro for 7 years or whatever at 47. And it just isn't. I mean, he hasn't grown any height-wise, but you can see he's carrying around a lot of muscle mass there, and that doesn't come off easily. And at 54, I don't see an ounce of fat on the guy, so it must have been near impossible for him to make 47.
Well, Curtis Summit has scored from all angles as he readies for round 4. 4th round of a scheduled 8-rounder underway here in Paris. In the white is Aaron Smith from the United States, fighting a fellow American, and Curtis Summit now training in Paris. Solid 3 rounds by Summit, pitching a shutout on Smith. But credit to Aaron Smith, who has taken a licking but keeps right on coming back for more against Summit, who continues to feed him that left hook. I tell you what, that right uppercut has been a good weapon for him tonight as well.
Davis started this round with his first meaningful combination of the fight, and I don't know if it did anything more than antagonize Curtis Summit. But he's dead game. You know, a lot of fighters come into a fight under these circumstances and just not try to, you know, get the other guy mad at him. You know, they're tapping gloves at the start every round and, you know, holding and trying to get, you know, argue with the referee, get as much, you know, time filled in there other than the actual time fighting. But you got to give this kid a lot of credit. He's come to give his best here, and he doesn't have a lot of artillery either, Sam. It's obvious he's not much of a puncher, but kind of a swivel puncher.
You know, Bob, you made mention that there's a guy working in his corner that's really kind of paying his dues and kind of has come a long way to at least try to give these guys some moral support in the corner tonight.
Yeah, Eric Bodger is a writer for some boxing magazines in the United States, and he's a guy that, you know, he is absolutely, Sam. He's paying his dues. He works with fighters. He's got a good relationship with them, and just on the last minute here, these guys are kind of on his own. They're on, like Smith mentioned, you know, he's training himself in his own home, and I guess depending on where you live, that can be rougher than some places, but it's just not the right. It's not the right combination for you know, for going overseas and trying to win a fight. But sometimes making a living is more important, and Eric is here, you know, giving these guys support. He's paying his dues. I'd like to see him end up in his own little championship of sorts.
Smith right now is earning whatever money he's going to make tonight, because Summit is actually just getting some work in here in round number 4. He is hitting at angles. He's got some good foot movement to get his angles. You see that left hook has been devastating tonight, even though Smith has withstood it. And you got to get a feeling that right hand, which has been wildly thrown by Summit, ever lands. This one definitely will be over. Warning for holding on Summit.
Finally, the referee warns Curtis for getting on the head a little bit there.
Crowd very quiet here, as they are anticipating and wanting some fireworks. And a right hand by Smith. A left hand follows up. There's that peekaboo. Smith slipped a pretty good right hand in there. Not sure he's got much mustard behind it, though.
But he arced it in there nicely.
No mustard in Paris, though, is a kind of a sore subject for you, isn't it? A lot of those sandwiches with no mustard, and that's the end of round number 4. Following Aaron Smith, and now Curtis Summit back into the corner. At 32 years of age, what can Summit hope to gain as far as climbing in the rankings? I understand that WBA has already ranked him as high as number 7 again, so he's starting to climb at least the ladder pretty well for himself.
Sure, it's a new weight class for him. You know, he's got a strong promoter behind him in the Akaris brothers that have, you know, 40 shows a year televised, and that's the kind of mustard that a fighter like Curtis Summit, you know, can employ to get himself a title shot, and when he does, you know, it can be right here under friendly circumstances, and that's the kind of thing that makes the ball roll.
You can see Smith threw a couple of pretty good punches, but every time he did in that round, Curtis Summit was ready to get right on top of him and threw a counter punch and did quite well. Speaking of Canal Plus, which is the French television people that are furnishing our pictures and sound, Sam Smith along with Bob Spagnola as Cedric Kushner Productions brings you super middleweight fighting from Paris tonight. Curtis Summit in the black, Aaron Smith in the white, and they move to round 5, scheduled for 8 here tonight. You see Summit has gone right back to work with his uppercuts, left and right, and there's that right hand again.
Yeah, it's tough for Aaron Smith here because Curtis Summit really is a counter puncher, and you know that if you don't open up on him, sometimes he's a little hesitate to pull the trigger. But when you start throwing punches at him, you're certainly going to be open for some real good counter shots by Curtis.
Bob, let me take you back to that January 1991 fight when he defeated, referring to Curtis Summit, Angel Pedroza. He knocked him out in 10 in Atlantic City, and of course lost later. Aaron Davis, who many said was a fight that he won. What seemed to come unwound with Curtis Summit about that time? The tougher opponents, or just exactly what happened to him?
Well, no, he actually, you know, he was coming along great. The fight with Pedroza, who's a vicious puncher himself, and 35 wins and I think 33 knockouts to his credit. But you know, he had his way with Curtis early in the fight, but you know, Curtis was biding his time, and once Pedrosa had shot his load, he wasn't quite prepared to take what Curtis Summit had to offer him on the other side of the equation. So he just hurt Smith there with an uppercut. But you know, and then the Davis fight, as I said, well, there was a fight. I had another fighter on the card, and Summit won the fight. To me, 7 rounds to 3. But you know, you're not about to let your undefeated world champion, you know, lose a 10-round fight, you know, in upstate New York. This fight seems like it's
Mr.
finally
Topic is taking probably a little bit more time to call this one than necessary, as Aaron Smith has been taking left and rights with great regularity.
And Curtis just took a page out of George Foreman's book and looked to Aaron's corner to tell him, hey, you know, do you want me to do this, or maybe you guys should do it?
Curtis would love to finish on another knockout, his 4th in a row. And it's
Smith
just a matter
would
of
love
time.
to finish the fight,
Yes.
you know, and but I don't think his corner is going to allow him to take too much more punishment.
Closing seconds, again in round number 5. As Smith, who looked like he was almost visibly out in round 2, has survived 3 more rounds. And you see the closing seconds here of the 5th round.
Double tough kid here, Sam. Summit's just walking to him with his hands down now and just taking liberties with him. And it's a very helpless feeling to have in a fight, Sam, where the other guy's just walking to you and you know you got nothing to hold him off at all.
There's the bell to end round 5. Closing foul it against Summit. Is Summit getting a little frustrated at this point? And Smith is still there. The fight hasn't stopped. Or what's his feeling right now, Bob?
I don't think so. I think you know, he's going to take his time. He still knows he's got 3 rounds to go. I think he will absolutely try to finish Smith when the time comes in this fight. But he's getting himself some work, and you know, he's a consummate professional. He's working on things, you know, landing punches and you know, trying different things. Day at the office.
Let's see the grimace of pain of Aaron Smith there. He got caught with that left hook.
I think I was grimacing too.
Get out of here. To the hotel.
Hein?
So Curtis
Jab,
Summit almost
vite,
from
vite.
start to finish. At least in the first 5 rounds, has had the upper hand as he heads for the 6th round.
6e reprise.
6th round of a scheduled 8-rounder. As we're in Paris tonight, these are super middleweights. Curtis Summit in the black, 154. Aaron Smith, 156 in the white. A last second, literally, replacement.
Up on top of the head.
Smith still standing, but I don't know how. Curtis Summit administering a lot of punishment to him right now.
Eric is up on the corner there with the towel in his hand, Sam. I don't believe this fight will finish this round.
Smith gamely trying to punch his way back into the fight, but he's out of it right now. He's come a long way and earned his money. Probably should be over right now. And he's going to go down. And I think they're finally going to throw the towel. They will. So even though the referee will finish the count from across the way, Eric has indeed stepped into the ring with a towel, and he said that's all he's going to give him. And he is on his feet, but the count had gone to a full 10, and it's official, a knockout in the 6th round. And it comes at roughly about 58 seconds into the
Voilà,
round.
mesdames, messieurs, c'était le premier combat de cette soirée, un combat où les deux boxeurs l'ont fort bien commencé et méritent encore une fois tous les deux amplement vos applaudissements. Merci pour eux.
They take a look at it, and he appears to be all right. But Curtis Summit did dish out some punishment to him and did a good job through the first 5.5. Have we got a little flicker of someone that can challenge here in Curtis Summit, Bob?
No, I honestly believe Curtis Summit will grasp the opportunity when he gets a shot at the world title at 154 pounds. And, you know, the fact that the Akeres brothers have Julio Cesar Vasquez, the WBA 154-pound champion, you know, it's a very natural match to be made. And, you know, Curtis Summit, the other guy's a big puncher, never been later in the rounds in the fight, and I think it's a real good match to be made down the road by Canal Plus.
So we'll wait for the official time of this, the 6th round knockout, and obviously we Probably will have an opportunity to take one more look at it, but Curtis Summit out of Joliet, Illinois, now training here in Paris, comes up with now his 14th knockout and his 4th consecutive knockout as he continues to try to climb upward onward in the super middleweight division.
Et donc déclaré vainqueur de ce combat par KO à la 6e reprise, Curtis Summit.
And Curtis Summit, 58 seconds, 6th round knockout. He wins here tonight in Paris over Aaron Smith. And you can hear the crowd in the background here of Paris as they appreciate the effort here by these two Americans in Paris, France. But again, Curtis Summit comes up with a knockout victory.
Le deuxième combat de cette soirée est un combat professionnel dans la catégorie des poids légers en 6 rounds de 3 minutes qui va opposer Christian Ibert à Julien